So today we're going to talk about kind of where I've been the last few weeks and why my farmer's tan is like out of control right now. Well, last week I was in the recovery position because I just got done shooting the Ohio Triple Crown. The Ohio Triple Crown is essentially a culmination of 3 major shooting events. It starts at the Cardinal Shooting Center in Marengo, Ohio. Then it moves up to Canton, Ohio with the Frank J. Bacard Memorial Matches. Then it culminates with the National Pistol Matches at Camp Perry, Ohio. Of course, the National Matches have been held every year at Camp Perry since 1903, pretty much. It's a very important historical, traditional, cultural event here in the US, especially if you're into shooting. So before talking about that, I kind of want to give some background as to where I was at prior to going up there, what my goals were, and hopefully give you guys a little bit more context about some of these things I talk about. And the thing I want to talk about are distinguished rifle and pistol badges. So I've coveted a distinguished badge of any sort since about 2019, 2018, when I first discovered them. I fell in love with shooting a rifle in the Marine Corps, and the type of shooting that you're taught in the Marine Corps, at least you were, is essentially the same type of rifle shooting that you're taught in high power rifle or service rifle or 3-position small bore if you're more familiar with international shooting. It's all about body position and using the sling and sighting in, and just I fell in love with it. And so I naturally found out about the Distinguished Rifle Program, and that is what I wanted to accomplish. Never really worked out when I was in the Marine Corps and get any points. I tried going to a small arms firing school, which is like an introductory CMP event, but it just never panned out. So I never did anything with that when I was in. When I got out, my main job for a while was commercial fishing. And unfortunately with commercial fishing, that would take me out of the continental US right smack dab in the middle of summer every year. So I would never have a chance to attend the national matches at Camp Perry, Ohio, so long as I was fishing. And so I would go and attend the travel games as best I could. In 2021, the first CMP event I went to was the Oklahoma City games, and I really loved the atmosphere there, the community aspect and everything. Didn't win anything, but I had fun, and I was really looking forward to going again in 2022. Unfortunately, in 2022, they canceled it, so I was looking forward to doing that all year, and the whole time I was working on a boat, just like, oh, I can't wait to get off this and go shooting. Didn't work out. The next event I attended was the Talladega 600 in 2023, November of 2023, so last year. And let me tell you, I was not going to miss that event for the world. I just finished up a really long fishing season. We literally fished to the last minute of the last hour of the last day we were allowed to fish, November 1st. We had to put the boat away, clean it up and everything. And we flew out of Dutch Harbor on like the 4th or something. And I didn't get back to Texas until like the 5th around noon. And I threw a bunch of stuff in my car. Around 5 or 6 p.m. we started driving to Talladega. And I drove 12 hours in the middle of the night to get to Talladega just in time for the M16 small arms firing school that I signed up for. Again, like an intro to service rifle class. And then the cool thing about it is you actually shoot a match after the class, and everyone uses the same rifle, the same ammo, and it's a slightly modified course, but it's all about the same 3 positions. Even with tired eyes that had just done like 24 hours of flights and 12 hours of driving, I managed to come in second in that match, which was high enough to actually get my first distinguished rifle points. So distinguished badges are essentially the oldest awards for marksmanship that the United States government has given to individuals that have achieved a high degree of excellence in competition, is what they call it. And they've been giving them out, awarding them since the late 19th century, I think starting back in the 1880s. And the way you get points is you score in the top 10% of non-distinguished shooters in specially designated excellence in competition matches, both pistol and rifle. And the amount of points you get is determined by how many non-distinguished shooters there are. You need to have a minimum of 6 non-distinguished shooters for there to be 1 6-point leg, and you need to have 30 points overall to get your distinguished rifle or distinguished pistol badge. Depending on how many shooters there are, there could be 8-point legs and 10-point legs, and multiple 6-point legs, multiple 8-point legs. There's a whole chart, but essentially 8 and 10-point legs are pretty rare. But the SAFs class, the M16 SAFs class, is a little different, where you get a 4-point leg. It's an introductory leg. So I ended up getting the points for that, my first rifle points. I was super stoked about that. The next day I shot the M9 SAFs class. So one thing I really liked about the Talladega 600 compared to like the Oklahoma City games is that they scheduled it in such a way that you could shoot the M16 SAFs class and the M9 SAFs class on separate days. Most of the other events, it looks like they schedule them on the same day. So while I'd always been aware of Bullseye pistol and had sort of an interest, I was never able to like dip my feet in or dip my toes in just because it never worked out alongside the rifle matches. In any case, I shot the M9 SAFs class the very next day and I won the match by a pretty solid margin. I think I shot like a 242 or something like that, 243. And I was really, really happy with that because you get like a really nice walnut plaque. I think I still have it. And of course you get your introductory 4 points towards your distinguished pistol badge. And I really liked getting that plaque. Let me tell you, winning a match felt really, really, really good. So I think that triggered something in my head that was like, I want to win this. I want to win more matches. Anyways, at the Talladega 600, I shot a few more matches. I shot a 22 EIC, my first real Bullseye match. The M9 SAFs class is a little bit different from most Bullseye matches in that the entire thing is done at 25 yards and you're allowed to shoot with both hands on the gun, and everyone gets given a rack grade M9 and the same 9mm ammunition. My first real Bullseye match was a 22 Excellence in Competition match. So 22 Excellence in Competition is another distinguished badge. There are 3 distinguished pistol badges now. So the original distinguished pistol shot going back to like the 1800s, that's like the main one. That's service pistol, that's 1911s, that's M9s, that sort of thing. Then there's also the distinguished 22 badge, which came out in I think around 2015. That's for like a 22 rimfire, like a Ruger Mark III or Ruger Mark IV, that sort of gun. And then there's also the distinguished revolver badge that has been a thing since I think 2022. And as its name would imply, it's about revolvers. So my very first real Bullseye match, I actually shot with the Smith & Wesson K22 for the 22 EIC match, and I ended up shooting better, a higher score than I did with the M9 with both hands on the gun. So I think I shot like a 246 in my first 22 match with this gun right here. Pretty decent score for someone that has never shot Bullseye before. That was literally my first Bullseye match. The next Bullseye match I shot there was a revolver match. Did a terrible job. I had no dope on my gun whatsoever. I was going into it completely blind. And yeah, I just didn't do very well at all. The next match I shot, I actually borrowed a pistol from Robert Farrell. Great guy. I was actually shooting with him the entire time up in Ohio. And so with a borrowed gun, I shot a 251 or something like that out of 300. The thing that stood out in my mind was that I shot above the minimum score to achieve points in the distinguished pistol shot badge. You need to shoot a minimum score to get points in addition to being in the top 10% of non-distinguished. In any case, after the Talladega 600, I realized I wanted to shoot Bullseye. I have a knack for this. It's kind of like the offhand stage in rifle, which I've always liked. I've always been really good at the offhand stage. I like the fact that it's just man, gun, target, and it's all about mental discipline and trigger control. Bullseye is essentially the offhand stage of rifle, but even harder, right? Because you have one hand on the gun and no one has a shooting jacket. And I realized that something about that just clicked for me. And so I went full force, head first into Bullseye. I bought a Hammerly 208 because Target Pistol Guy, now called the Bullseye channel, he said it was like the best 22 pistol or something. I watched this video a while back and I believed him. Greatest choice I ever made. For service pistol, I was actually shooting a military SIG P210 for a while and I got pretty good with that. And then eventually I ended up getting a P210-6 with the adjustable sights from the factory. And then I also had a Smith & Wesson K38, which is essentially the pre-Model 14 in 38 Special for revolver. So I started hitting that hard. I started practicing literally like every day from like January 1st all the way to like mid-March. All that training culminated in going to the Talladega Spring Classic, where I showed up for one day and I shot all the EICs, and that was it, just the 22 EICs, service pistol, service revolver. I won the revolver match with a score of 357. I came in second for service pistol, but the #1 guy was already distinguished, so I ended up getting the points. So I got 6 points towards my badge there, and then I also shot the 22 EIC match, and I learned a very good lesson that I should never forget my magazines, because what cost me a lot of points in the rapid and time fire was that in between the two strings, I was having to pack mags, so by the time they were calling already on the firing line, I was not ready. So I ended up shooting really poorly for 22 EIC, didn't get points. But I walked away from the Talladega Spring Classic in March with, I believe, 6 points in revolver, 10 points in service pistol and 0 points in 22 EIC. And again, to get your badge in any of those categories, you need to have 30 points. So the next match that I trained for was the 2 matches in Texas. There was one in Panola County Gun Club at the State Rifle Championship in May, and there was a service pistol match and a 22 EIC match. So I came in, I shot a 280 and I think 11 X's for the 22 EIC. I won 6 points for 22 EIC. I shot my best ever service pistol score in a match. I shot a 285, 12X. I still have the targets behind me, and I haven't shot that well since, but I won the points for service pistol there, so that was another 12 points. So that brought me up to 16 points for service pistol and 6 points for 22 EIC. And then the very next day, I drove to the Texas State Pistol Championship, and I shot all 3 EICs. Something about that range and the way the targets turned just kind of threw me off, and I shot a really poor service pistol score, at least for me, of kind of below average, and I shot a below average 22 EIC score, but it was still enough to get points in both of those categories. I actually ended up getting an 8-point leg. There were enough shooters for an 8-point leg in 22 EIC, and then for service pistol, I ended up getting another 6 points. And by the time we got to the revolver match, I guess I'd warmed up. I came in 3rd place behind Travis Jorgensen and Greg Markowski, 2 like great, excellent, amazing shooters, and they tied, and then they broke their tie on X's at 372 and something X's. I shot a 368, and I won the 6 points for revolver. So after the state pistol and rifle championships in Texas, I was sitting at 22 service pistol points, 14 22 EIC points, and 12 revolver points. And so going into the Ohio Triple Crown, my goals were very clear. I wanted to get all 3 distinguished badges, which some would say it's a pretty cocky goal, but I thought it was pretty doable, especially considering that every single one of the 3 events that made up the Triple Crown each had EIC matches. So Cardinal had a 22 EIC, service pistol EIC, and revolver EIC. Canton also had those same 3 EICs, and then Camp Perry, of course, had 3 EICs as well. And the other thing about these matches is, since they're kind of like a major event in the Bullseye community, it was pretty much assumed in my head that there would be enough people there to have 10-point and 8-point legs. So I made like a whole matrix of, you know, how well I had to shoot to leg out in all 3 badges and stuff like that. And there was basically a very good chance that I could get all 3 badges at the exact same time in under a year of shooting Bullseye, which pretty cool in my opinion. So I made the decision to drive up there, take 2 weeks out of my schedule to just do nothing but shooting. So I drove up on the 5th and the 6th. I broke it up into 2 days. It was like an 18-hour drive. And I actually recorded a lot of footage while I was driving, and I thought about editing it into like a Sopranos style intro, so maybe that'll make it in, or maybe I won't be able to find a song or something that fits it. Broke it up into 2 days, slept in Memphis, Tennessee in the back of my car. Horrible idea, terrible idea. Don't sleep in your car in Memphis, Tennessee. Anyways, I got to the Cardinal Center, and I slept in the parking lot of the Loves across from Cardinal. Woke up on the 7th, drove into the Cardinal Center, found where I was supposed to be. The first match was a free pistol match. You do 60 shots slow fire at 50 meters on a pretty small, unforgiving target. And normally free pistol is shot with very specialized handguns, but I was just using my Hammerly 208. And since I've mentioned my Hammerly 208 a few times at this point, I figured I'd bring it out just in case you're not familiar with it. Essentially, it's a 25 meter standard pistol. It's got a 1 kilogram trigger, so 2.2 pounds, and a shorter sight radius than what would be typical on a free pistol. Free pistols can also have grips that wrap around your entire hand, whereas this only has a palm shelf. The trigger on a free pistol, because it's free, right, it's open, it's kind of like unlimited. The trigger weight can be literally as light as you want it on a free pistol, but I was shooting with a standard 2-pound trigger. Personally, I think I did really well for having never shot a free pistol match. Those scoring rings are a lot smaller than what we do here in North American Bullseye, and I was using the completely wrong pistol for it, and I still ended up coming in, I think, 3rd place behind John Zurich and Lisa Emmert. Lisa Emmert, of course, is a Olympic level athlete. She shoots 10-meter air pistol, and John Zurich has won basically everything there is to win here in North American Bullseye. And I shot a score of 515 with my Hammerly. So I was basically just treating it as slow fire practice. because you can never have enough slow fire practice. At that free pistol match, I actually met up with Target Pistol Guy, also now known as Bullseye Channel, and he was actually kind enough to let me stay at his home. So thank you so much for that, Zane. I seriously, everyone has just been super generous to me that whole time I was up there. So let me explain kind of how the matches are structured. So every day you have a 900 aggregate match, which is a 90 shot match, followed by an excellence in competition match. So on the first day, you have a 90 shot match in 22, then you have your 22 excellence in competition match. The next day is usually a center fire 900 or 90 shot match, followed by a revolver match. Then the last day is usually a 45 match, followed by a service pistol match. That gives you a total score aggregate of 2,700 over 3 days, 270 shots, and then you also have your EICs thrown in. So with Cardinal, the first day was a 22 90 shot match and a 22 EIC. I shot like an 853 for the 900, and for the 22 EIC, I shot a 284, and there were enough shooters for the 22 EIC that were non-distinguished that they actually had a 10-point leg, and I won that 10-point leg, which was really cool. Now here's the thing about the 2700 is I'd come up there actually planning on shooting just my Hammerly for the entire 270 shot aggregate. There's a category that you can shoot a 22 pistol in lieu of a center fire pistol or a 45 pistol, and I'd come up to Ohio planning to shoot all the 2700s, 22 only, because this is the gun that I have the most confidence with and the most amount of trigger time with. But I realized I'm already here. I've already paid, you know, almost $1,000 in match fees to register for all these matches, that I might as well go ahead and shoot the real guns, right? The center fire handgun for the center fire match, the 45 for the 45 match. So I had brought my SIG P210 to shoot service pistol, so I was going to use that for center fire. Fortunately, I did not bring a 45, and I don't actually own a 45 that I would consider like adequate for Bullseye. I wasn't going to bring like a T-Sauce or something and shoot it at 50 yards. So thankfully, due to the generosity again of Target Pistol Guy, Zane, he let me borrow his Chambers Custom 45 1911, and I shot it for the 45 match, and he even let me use his ammo, Atlanta Arm, great match grade ammo that is really expensive, so I shot that for the 45 match. Fortunately, I did not do very well on the center fire and the 45 match day. We had a horrible amount of wind and rain, so much so that the revolver match and the service pistol match actually got canceled, which threw a huge monkey wrench in my plans, because in order for me to leg out and get my revolver badge at Camp Perry, I need to make up a lot of points at Cardinal and Canton. So with the revolver match being canceled at Cardinal, that now put me in a position to where I had to get 8 or 10 points at Canton in order to get 10 points at Perry and get my badge to make 30 points, right? So that added a huge amount of stress to the mix. I also found out that there was going to be an Accuracy X handgun given to the high non-distinguished shooter at Camp Perry for the President's Pistol match. Now I had like another gamble I wanted to take. Do I sit out the service pistol matches and, you know, shoot high non-distinguished in the President's 100 match and win that Accuracy X? The weather already made up the decision for me at Cardinal and rained us out of the service pistol match, so I was going to see how I felt up at Canton. In any case, yeah, I did not perform very well on the center fire match or the 45 match, and I was super bummed out that the revolver and the service pistol match was canceled. Next day was the service pistol 900. So Cardinal was a little different. Like I said earlier, normally you shoot one day 22, one day center fire, one day 45. Cardinal was different in that they had a service pistol 900, which is a 90 shot aggregate using a service pistol. And if you watch my video explaining service pistol, essentially you have more restrictions on what it is. You can't have red dots and stuff like that, for example. And so I shot that. I think I did pretty well. I think I shot like an 810 or something like that, which is decent. That's about my average. 90% with the service pistols, about my average. After the service pistol 900, we had the awards ceremony and the shooters social at this brewery, at this bar that has like a bunch of craft beers or whatever like that. The biggest thing I love about these events is the socializing aspect, and there was a lot of socializing. I slept in Columbus, Ohio that night at Zane's house, and then the very next morning I drove up to Canton and I checked into the Frank J. Bacard Memorial Matches. Canton is by far my favorite event that I attended up there. It's just so intimate and so close together, and everyone is, you know, it's perfect for camping out in your car and stuff like that. They have showers there, they have breakfast, lunch, dinner served there, cooked fresh. It's just really, really cool. The range is great too. Like, the turning targets are not as great as Cardinal. Cardinal's a newer range, but it's just something about it feels nice at Canton. In any case, the very first day, 22 day, I shot an 860 for the 22 90 shot match, 860 points out of 900. And then for the 22 EIC, I shot a 285, which got me another 10-point leg, which earned me my first distinguished badge for 22 EIC, which I was super stoked about. That put me over 30 points. The most impressive thing I think I saw there that day, though, was Jon Shue, traveling gunsmith, shooter extraordinaire, former Marine, awesome dude, who I think I made great friends with while I was up there, and I just kind of shadowed him the entire time I was there. He slept in the back of his ambulance that he uses as like his traveling gunsmith station, woke up that morning on the very first relay, cracked his back, and he shot an 895 out of 900. He put 90 shots into an area like this big at 50 and 25 yards. It just absolutely insane, mind-blowing accuracy, mind-blowing precision. Just a fantastic shooter. Really, I was super impressed by that. My shooting by comparison is very mediocre, and that's what I try to tell people when people think I'm a really good shot. It's like I am not even close to being the best. There is so much ground between where I'm shooting and where these guys that are winning it are shooting. It's that's how exponents work, right? Anyways, the next day was the centerfire day. I shot my P210 again. I shot again, I think like another 810, 90% score, somewhere thereabouts. And again, talking about that revolver match, everything hinged entirely on my performance here at Canton, because I had to get either an 8 or a 10-point leg here at Canton. And the hard part about getting the revolver distinguished badge is because it's so new, there are a lot of good shooters, great shooters out there that haven't earned that badge yet, right? All those great shooters have earned the Distinguished Pistol Shot badge. Most of them have earned the 22 badge, but the Revolver badge has only been out for 2 years. So I'm going up against people like John Zurich, John Bikar, Chris Hudak, all these great shooters that, you know, just absolutely kill it in Bullseye, have been shooting Bullseye for forever. And it was stressing me out so bad. I was like scouting out people all day, like seeing how they're shooting the day before on the practice day and stuff like that. I was like seeing how Chris was shooting, seeing how John Zurich was shooting for the revolver practice. And it was really stressful. All day I was just really like built up to shooting that revolver match. I got up to the line for the revolver match after the centerfire 900, and I managed my nerves well enough, and I shot a 363. I came in third place behind Greg Markowski and I think Jason Gregoire, another great shooter. He's already distinguished though, and so is Greg Markowski. So I actually won the 10-point leg for revolver, which is exactly what I needed to do at Canton. I needed to get that 10-point leg so that I could get 10 points at Perry and get my distinguished revolver badge. So that was just a huge wave of relief over me. The reason why is because at Perry, anyone that scores in the top 10% of non-distinguished gets 10 points automatically. At these other matches, you need to win. You need to be like the first place non-distinguished to get the 10 points, or you need to be like second place non-distinguished to get 8 points. At Perry, however, everyone gets 10 points if you're in the top 10% of non-distinguished. So me getting that 10-point leg here at Canton took a huge stress off my back. Like, I was seriously just so happy. Oh, also in the evenings at Canton, after the 90 shot matches and the EICs are over, every evening at Canton they had this great like cookout in the back behind the clubhouse. On the first day it was like a barbecue thing. Second day it was like kielbasa. The third day it was like burn your own steak. Like I give you this big old raw steak and you throw it on the grills back there and you cook it. I cooked mine perfect medium rare, just absolutely perfect medium rare. Fantastic environment. Everyone's super close together. Everyone's socializing. By far my favorite event. On the very first night I had slept in my car, but one of the gentlemen there, Chris Swank, did have an open bed at his hotel, and he very kindly offered to allow me to sleep at his hotel. So I slept the next 2 nights in a bed. I got to shower every night, super great. I was not going to be happy if I was sleeping in the back of my Prius for 3 days, although Canton was probably the best place to do it because they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner served there. They had showers and stuff like that, a place to do, you know, brush your teeth and stuff like that. So it was a great place. If I had to do it, I wouldn't have had any problems, but thankfully I didn't have to. So thank you, Chris. Chris also let me borrow his 45 for the 45 match at Canton, and I ended up shooting pretty well with it once I got the sights dialed in for me. On the long long line, the first two 50-yard lines, I didn't do very well because I was still trying to figure out where to aim, and I was clicking with the sights. On my third slow fire string, I think I shot like a 90, and then the rest of the day I shot pretty well. So that was a great handgun he let me borrow. It was like Birkin Custom Works, just a really great handgun. I was super grateful that he let me use it, and I shot it pretty well. I think I ended up shooting like a 797, and again, if I didn't have those two poor long line scores, I probably would have shot like an 810, 820, which is a really good score for not having ever shot that gun. It's a borrowed gun, and not being used to shooting a 1911, not being used to shooting 45. So on the 45 day of Canton, they also shot the service pistol match. I did decide to shoot the service pistol match. I did okay, and I ended up getting an 8-point leg, so that brought me up from 22 service pistol points to 30 points, which is what I needed to go distinguished. So I went distinguished service pistol at Canton. So now going into Perry, I was at 34 points for 22 EIC. I went distinguished there. I went distinguished for service pistol. I was at 30 points. And for revolver, I was at 22 points. So I needed 10 points at Perry to go distinguished revolver. So my goals going into Perry were, first and foremost, get distinguished revolver. Second was to get the President's 100. So at Camp Perry, there's the President's pistol match, and the top 100 competitors in the President's pistol match get their President's 100 tab. So those were my two main goals here at Perry. I'd also signed up to shoot the air pistol championship, and my secondary goal was to get into the final of the air pistol match, which the top 8 shooters of the 2 qualification rounds end up in the air pistol finals. In any case, on the last day of Canton, we wrapped it all up, and everyone takes off in a big cloud of dust and drives over to Camp Perry and arrives there in the evening and checks in. Unfortunately, I got to Camp Perry a little late, didn't check in until the next day. While I was there, I found out my lodging situation. Robert Farrell, the guy that I had met at Talladega 600, the one who let me borrow his 1911 for my very first service pistol match, he actually had a spare bed in his hotel, so I stayed with him for the entirety of Camp Perry, which is really great. That just takes a huge stress off my back, you know, trying to figure out where I'm gonna stay, you know, if I'm gonna shower that day or whatnot, or if I'm gonna be able to, you know, wake up in the morning without a stiff back. So thanks. Like, seriously, the generosity of the Bullseye community just knows no bounds. Also, I forgot to mention this, but Zane, the person who let me stay at his house for the entirety of Cardinal, as well as let me borrow his handgun and stuff like that, he actually got in contact with Steve Huff of Accuracy X, and Steve Huff allowed me to borrow an Accuracy X 1911 from him for the duration of Camp Perry. So now I had an Accuracy X 1911. So now I had an Accuracy X 1911, and so now I had an Accuracy X 1911. What are you doing? What? So the very first day of Perry, I actually signed up for the advanced small arms firing school, where unlike the introductory like M9 small arms firing school, where it's like very basic, the advanced SAFs goes into like smaller nuanced stuff, and it's hosted by some of the best shooters in the Army Marksmanship Unit, and they're there to help answer any more advanced questions that you might have. After the advanced SAFs class, I kind of hung out in the Jon Shue, Steve Huff booth again for quite a while. Then I did a little bit of pistol practice, got that 1911 kind of zeroed in at the 50-yard line. After that was the first shot ceremony. I recorded quite a bit of the first shot ceremony. My favorite speaker was the Olympic athlete they had come out. She had a great story to speak about, and then she also shot this like commemorative Anschutz rifle that she was given as a prize. For the very first time outdoors and stuff like that. It was really cool. It was great. She got to show her gold medal. I got to take pictures of it, her with her gold medal. Really awesome speech. And basically the takeaway was, if you want to be the best, you got to put in the time. There's no tricks to it. You just have to put in the time. After the first shot ceremony, I actually did my first 60 shots of the air pistol match I'd signed up for. So air pistol, 10-meter air pistol is structured in that you shoot 60 shots, slow fire, obviously singly loaded, and it's scored out of 600 points. And I shot a 554 on the very first day. I really like the Gary Anderson Air Pistol Center, and I was super stoked to finally shoot my air pistol indoors. And the electronic targets are super nice. I really enjoyed it. The only thing was I had like no idea about the rules. Apparently I couldn't wear boots in there. Apparently my eye blinder was too wide. Just all kinds of stuff they were hitting me on. At one point I took the screen, like the electronic target, because I felt my gun was zeroed. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I took the screen screen, and I just turned it completely around, and the range officer came by again and was like, we have to be able to see the screen. So I had to put it underneath the table where I couldn't see it, but they could see it. It was just the whole thing. I still ended up shooting like a 554 though, which apparently is pretty good for my first ever air pistol match. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I picked up air pistol about 3 months ago to kind of supplement Bullseye, help me out in the long line. It's great because you can do it in your backyard. On Tuesday, July the 16th, was the pistol warm-up match, and I was on relay 1 for the pistol warm-up match, and oh my god, was it windy. It was awful. It was just gusts of like in excess, I think 20 miles an hour. It was terrible. Everyone shot way below their averages. I'm talking like top shooters shooting like in the 80s and stuff like that. Yeah, it was not good. For 22, I did okay, I guess. For center fire, I was still trying to zero that 1911 that I was borrowing from Steve. And so I think I held like 8 shots in the long line. I just couldn't stop it from blowing around the entire time. I couldn't get any good shots or any meaningful data, so I just didn't shoot any rounds. Short line was okay. I think I was zeroed for the short line. My crowning achievement that day was on the 45 portion of the pistol warm-up match. So the pistol warm-up match is kind of different. You do 22 slow fire, 22 times, 22 rapid, and then you start back over. You do center fire slow, center fire time, center fire rapid, and then 45 slow, 45 time, 45 rapid. On the 45 slow, I shot a 90 even with those high wind conditions. I was pretty happy. I mean, 90 on the long line with iron sights, service pistol, no matter what, is a pretty decent score. So I was pretty happy considering the wind conditions that day. I think my overall score wasn't very great for the pistol warm-up match, but who's counting? Anyways, after the pistol warm-up match, there wasn't really anything to do. I got in maybe like 10 shots of practice, like extra practice after all the pistol warm-up match relays were over. And then in the evening, I shot my second 60 shots of air pistol, and I shot, well, actually, I started off really bad. So in the sighter shots, I noticed that my gun was shooting really slow. Normally it's supposed to shoot like 550 feet per second, but on the screen it was telling me my bullets were traveling like 90 meters per second. I was like, that's really slow, and they were hitting really low, obviously. Time I was supposed to be taking to sight in my pistol, I actually took it to the tech. The tech kind of disassembled it, blew it out a little bit, put it back together, and then it was shooting higher velocity again. So I took it back on the line and I had to shoot it, and as I was going, I was having to zero it and stuff too, because it was shooting a different velocity than it was the day before. And in any case, I ended up shooting with 555, and I'm really proud of that because the entire time I used the electronic monitor. I was able to manage my emotions, manage my expectations as I was shooting, because normally when I'm shooting and I'm looking at the target after every shot, it goes one of both ways. If I shoot a really bad shot, I get in my head, I'm like, damn, I'm really upset about that. But then if I start shooting good shot after good shot after good shot, I'm like, man, I'm making a really nice target here. I don't want to mess it up, you know? Then I get in my head that way, and then I start getting trigger freeze, and I start hesitating, and then I shoot worse. So me being able to look at all 60 shots and manage my emotions and keep my highs and lows in check that entire time, I think was a win. I ended up shooting better that day than I did the day before. I shot a 555, so I beat my the day prior score by 1 point, and I was actually in first place for I think a day or two until Lisa Emmert showed up and smoked me. On Wednesday the 17th of July was the first real day of Perry. That was a 22 day, and the weather conditions were perfect. I was on the first relay early morning, and the way they did the relays were they kind of staggered them. So on 22 day, first relay shot in the early morning. On the second day, first relay shot around 12, 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. On the third day, the first relay shot kind of in between the early morning and the late morning times. On the 22 day, I was shooting early in the morning. I could not ask for better weather. I ended up shooting really well. I finally cleaned the target. It was the first target I had cleaned the entire time I'd been up there. I think it was the only target I had cleaned, and by clean, I mean shoot a perfect score on the target. It was on a time fire string. I think it was my first or second time fire string. In any case, I shot an 859 with 30 X's, and I actually won the iron sight division for 22. So that was just gravy on top of it. I had no intentions or expectations of winning any categories up at Perry. So I was really happy to win the iron sights category, at least for the first day. So after the 22-900 was actually the team matches. Team matches were essentially 30 shots, a national match course. Shooting for the Texas team, I shot a 285. It was actually kind of funny because me and the person I was shooting with for the Texas team, our scores were like perfectly mirrored. We both shot the same score on the long line, same score for timed fire, and then I think there was a 1 point difference for rapid fire. After the 900 match, the 22-900 match in the morning, and the team matches and everything, and getting through all that, the 22 EIC match, which I had already legged out at this point, happened pretty late in the evening or in the afternoon. So by that point, the wind had kind of started to pick up, and I ended up shooting like a 281 with the weather conditions. So I was pretty happy with that too. It was a long day of shooting, and I was mainly just doing the 22 EIC just for fun. The very next day, Thursday, the 18th, was a big day. It was center fire day, and I decided I was going to shoot Steve's 1911, his Accuracy X, through the entirety of Perry, including the center fire day. Of course, you can shoot a 45 in the center fire match, as well as the 45 match. I did okay. I did all right on the long line. I lost a lot of points in the short line, and I was just throwing a lot of shots low left. I was jerking the trigger a lot. I think because I just wasn't used to that 1911 trigger, I was trying to actively fight the recoil, just causing me to push a lot of shots low and left. But the most important thing about today for me and my goals coming up here to Perry was that today was the day I was going to find out whether or not I was going to get my distinguished revolver badge. So after shooting the center fire team match, I shot an abysmal score. I realized I hadn't eaten anything that day, and I was just all over the place. I shot like a 257 or something. It was the worst national match course I've shot in a long time. There was not enough time between the team matches to the revolver match because I was shooting on the first relay of the revolver match, because I was letting Jon Shue borrow my revolver on the second relay. There just wasn't enough time for me to get like an actual meal. So I went back to my car, I got 4 Pop-Tarts, and I just shoved them in my mouth as quickly as possible. Thankfully that did sate my appetite, did get me back sort of on track, but I was still pretty nervous going into the revolver match. To calm myself down, I told myself, this revolver shoots great, it's zeroed, you know where it hits, you don't have to look through the scope, just shoot your best, just focus on trigger control, sight alignment, sight picture. So I got to the long line, and I loaded up the revolver, and I shot my first 10 shots, not using the scope. At the very end, I looked through the scope, and I see a nice little group. It's just high. And I was like, oh my God. So upon scoring it, I think I shot like a 79 or like an 80, like 10, 12, 13 points below my average for the revolver at 50 yards. It was just really, really awful, and it put me in like this really bad mood where it was like a survival mode that my brain was in for the rest of the revolver match. It didn't help too that I was getting like super freaking neurotic. I was like, my hands were starting to sweat, and the grip tape that I usually wrap my revolver with, I was like, this is losing its stickiness. So I cut it off. And then I was looking through my bag, I couldn't find my electrical tape to like wrap it again. And then so I had to use masking tape. I was just all over the place. I was a mess. And that was like during my slow fire string, I'm like trying to wrap my grip and everything like that. It was just really bad. The second slow fire, I did make up some points, but my overall slow fire score was 165 out of 200 possible points there, which was way below my average, about 15 points below my average for the long line. The revolver match is a little bit different from the other pistol and 22 matches where you shoot 20 shots at 50 yards rather than 10 shots at 50 yards. Anyways, I did manage to pull it together a little bit in timed and rapid fire at 25 yards, and I managed to shoot, I think, an overall score of 349, which put me in the top 10% of non-distinguished shooters, securing my 10 points, securing my last distinguished badge. So I had officially gotten all 3 distinguished badges within a year, all at the same time, which is just really, really, really cool. And then also I let Jon Shue borrow my revolver after for relay 2. He shot a 360. He outshot me with my own gun. That freaking bastard. And he actually went distinguished with my revolver too, which is really cool. So my revolver ended up making 2 distinguished badges on the same day. And of course, Jon Shue is like a legendary shooter, so the price of that revolver just went up, man. So in any case, that lifted a huge amount of weight off my shoulders. From then on, I was just coasting. For the President's 100, I was just like, if I can just shoot my average, I can get the President's 100, and I'd have hit all my goals for coming up here to Perry. Also later that night, ended up hanging out with a bunch of the current and former Marines, and we had a little bit of beer and pizza thing going on. I also found out that I did not make the air pistol final. I kind of went there in the evening, and I was like videoing people and stuff, and I saw all these names. Some of them I recognized, and I was like, oh man, I am not going to make the final. I mean, I'm talking like Nick Maurer, Olympic level shooter, Suman Sangera, another Olympic level shooter, of course Lisa Emmert, she's been shooting the whole time. So all these great shooters showed up the last second and pushed me from like first all the way down to ninth, and I was like, oh. In any case, I was kind of happy though. I just wasn't shooting well that day, you know, with all that stress that was happening with the revolver match, and I just wanted to relax. I did not want to shoot another 24 shots of slow fire. The next day, the 19th, was 45 day. I started off with an excellent long line. I was just chewing out the center of that target with that accuracy X. I mean, that gun is ridiculously accurate. If I do everything right, that gun will punch a 10. So I ended up shooting like a 94, a 91, and then a 94 for my first 3 long line scores. Unfortunately, even though it started really strong, my rapid fire was just really, really, really awful. So I actually realized why that was later on in the day. So I was shooting reloads from Lee Fleming. He's the team captain of Accuracy X. He let me shoot some of his reloads for the short line on center fire day, and that's why my timed and rapid scores were actually better on center fire day than they were on 45 day. I mean, I shot a 160 on the rapid fire, so it's like I shot like an 80 and another 80 for rapid fire. 20 points dropped on both of those. Normally I shoot like in the low 90s, low mid 90s for rapid fire, but yeah, I was just way below average there. And so I realized I needed to get some more reloads from him before I shot on Saturday. Of course, Saturday is the big day with the President's Pistol match, the National Trophy individual match. For the 45 team match, I think I did okay. Also on the 45 day, they don't do an EIC match after the team matches. They just do an award ceremony for the 2700 aggregate, as well as the revolver and rimfire distinguished badges. So I actually received my 22 rimfire distinguished badge on Friday and my revolver distinguished badge then as well. So that was really cool. I also got an award for the first day for winning 22 iron sights as the high civilian, which was pretty cool. I had no expectation of that, but again, it was really cool to win. That was just gravy. Also, there's a category for shooting a 22 only across the board. I was talking about how I originally planned on shooting 22 only for the center fire and the 45 match. Instead of shooting a center fire and a 45 pistol, you just shoot a 22 through everything. The person that won the 22 only category got a freaking Pardini, like a $3,000 Pardini handgun, like the one they use in the Olympic rapid fire. So I think I'm gonna do that next year. I'd like to win a $3,000 handgun. That'd be awesome. In the evening, I got those reloads from Lee, and then I was going into Saturday feeling confident. I knew my 0 for the long line with the ammo I was shooting that day, and then I knew my 0 for the short line from the center fire day with the reloads that Lee had given me. Anyways, now we're on Saturday, the 20th. This is the big day. This is pistol day, and this comprises of the President's Pistol match in the morning, the National Trophy individual match right after that, and the National Trophy team match. So for the President's 100 match, my whole mindset was just, if I can shoot my average, if I can shoot a 90% across the board, I will get the President's 100. I will be okay. I will be happy with that. And so I did. I shot a 360, ended up actually in the top third of the President's 100. First time coming up to Perry, getting President's 100 is a pretty big deal, in addition to, of course, all those other distinguished badges I'd gotten. The thing is, I realized, though, is that if I hadn't shot the service pistol match at Canton and legged out at Canton, I would have been the high non-distinguished for the President's Pistol match, and I would have gotten that Accuracy X. I would have won that gun, but whatever. I mean, these things, they're always like that in hindsight, and in reality, if I hadn't legged out of Canton, I'd have been thinking about that during the President's Pistol match. I would have been getting in my head. I would have been like, everything rests on this shot right here, and then I would have shot worse, right? So I think I made the right choice by deciding to shoot the match at Canton, legging out. And so my only goal here for the President's Pistol match was to make the President's 100. For the National Trophy team match, I actually ended up shooting on sort of an ad hoc match made up of Master Sergeant Nick Capco, Major Martinez, as well as the retired Marine Corps Captain Nick Roberge. So we essentially had like a ad hoc like Marine Corps team, like current and former Marines. So that was pretty cool. I shot terrible. It was awful. Just for whatever reason, the way the relays worked out, I just didn't have enough time to eat anything between those 3 matches, and we were shooting the National Trophy team match out of competition anyways. I guess part of me just didn't really care or something, but I ended up shooting like a 257 or something really terrible, and I had a terrible long line. The 50-yard line is where I make up a lot of my points usually, so I was not super happy with my performance there, but hey, whatever. With the last shot of the National Trophy team match, that was it. Camp Camp Perry was wrapped up, and that was the end of my whole journey there, pretty much, besides getting pinned on by Jon Shue at the award ceremony. And he actually kind of gave me a little bit more of a bump than normal. He didn't like blood wing me or anything, but it was just so funny. He like bumped me in front of the whole crowd of people, and then he like looked at the crowd, like gave it some side eye. I was like, shh, you didn't see that. He ended up winning the national trophy individual match. That's why he was given the honor of pinning on the distinguished badges for the new distinguished pistol shot winners. And John Bakar, who won the President's Pistol match last year, actually won it again this year. So really cool on his part to be twice in a row winner of the President's Pistol match. I was super happy to get my President's 100 award and certificate and tab and stuff like that. So really cool. After the award ceremony, I ended up socializing for quite a bit, hung out with Jon Shue and Steve Huff and quite a few others. We ended up talking till it got dark pretty much, and got back to my hotel, packed my stuff, and that was it. Left that morning, stopped by Camp Perry just to like buy something from Commercial Row. By the way, that is a huge part of Camp Perry. Like all these vendors are set up there once a year, like Champion's Choice, Creedmoor Sports, Gunsmiths are there, you know, they have their booths and stuff. Camp Perry also has the CMP North store, of course, where they have the M1 Grands and Springfields and 1917s and M1Ds and M1Cs, all kinds of cool stuff. Overall, it's just a really, really great experience. And if you are at all interested in shooting sports, and you're a red-blooded American, like you absolutely need to go and make the trip to Camp Perry for either any of the disciplines that are shot there. They shoot pistol there, they shoot rifle there, long range, small bore, air gun, all kinds of stuff. There's 4 weeks of Perry. And I'm not saying you have to shoot Bullseye, but I think the Bullseye community is just the best. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to achieve what I achieved up at Camp Perry and hit all my goals if it wasn't for the kindness of everyone there. For example, like ammunition that was being given to me by Zane, by Robert, by Chris, by Emily Maurer. All these people gave me ammo. Steve, Chris, Zane letting me borrow guns, Zane letting me stay in his home, people letting me use their hotels and stuff like that. I would not have been able to shoot as well if I was sleeping in the back of my Prius every single day, waking up with a stiff back and trying to shoot a good score, right? I just want to thank everyone, and if you are wondering about how you want to get into competitive shooting, or if you are deciding what sport to shoot, like I really think you guys should shoot Bullseye. If you have no direction in your shooting, or you're getting bored of shooting, or getting bored of just endless consumerism and, you know, getting the next latest greatest gun or next latest greatest gadget or red dot or whatever, like start shooting Bullseye. You meet these great people. Everyone should come out and shoot the Triple Crown, man. It's so awesome. So my goals going into the future, and what I learned from Perry and everything, is leading up to this, I didn't have very much practice. I was dealing with this freaking cat who was taking up all my time and all my practice time. So I need to practice more before shooting a big match, and I especially need to focus on timed and rapid fire and consistently managing recoil. Because in practice, sometimes I'll have really good rapid fire and time fires, but it feels inconsistent. And then sometimes I'll have really bad rapid fire and time fire. And then when the rubber meets the road in these matches, my rapid and timed averages out to around like 90, which is not great. I think I'm making a lot of points in the long line. My long line scores are up there with some of these really, really, really good shooters. But if I can just back it up, I can start winning some of these matches. So next year, hopefully, if I make it up there again, I'm going to be coming with a vengeance. I'm going to be focusing hard on rapid fire and time fire, and I'm going to win some stuff. Hopefully, we'll see. Again, I just want to say thank you all to everyone that helped me out while you were up there, all the people I met, tons of people that have watched my videos and just come up to me and you know, said how much they like the videos and stuff. Thank you all for your support, and hopefully I can see you next year. Hopefully I can see you at the Talladega 600 if I make it out there again, or any of these other CMP events. With all that said, thank you all for listening to my story. In the following weeks, I am going to be coming out with some pretty cool videos. I've got some great ideas. While I was driving, I was coming up with a lot of different ideas and just talking to all these different people, and lots of people giving me pointers and tips and helping me with my shooting form and stuff like that, especially John Zurich and Chris Hudock. They gave me a lot of pointers as far as my body position stuff goes that I found to be really useful. Probably going to make a guide to distinguished revolver, because I think there's some things that people maybe don't consider when it comes to revolver shooting, and maybe some other stuff. So we'll see. This is my final haul from Camp Perry, well, besides the expert rifle badge, but I just think that looks super cool. It was almost surreal taking a look at these when I pulled them out of my car when I finally got back home. I was looking at them. It felt pretty surreal. So anyways, thank you all for watching. This is probably gonna be a really long video, but I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next one.